Hey, Deshal, good morning.
Hi. Okay, so tell us, what does floating the rupee mean?
Yeah, so until a couple of days ago, the central bank has been maintaining a fixed exchange rate in effect by having an official rate of between 200 to 203. And banks have not really been able to conduct transactions above or below that rate. Mm-hmm. So by floating the rupee, what you're doing is effectively removing that administrative price control and allowing the rupee to trade at a more market-oriented level. But to add to that, what's actually happened is not a pure float. So what they have done is they've effectively shifted it from a level of 200 to a level of 230. So there is, again, not an official price control or administrative rate at 230, but it's an accepted rate amongst the market that 230 is the kind of new controlled rate. So it goes from 200 to 230.
Okay, so it's not fully floated. If it were fully floated, where do you think we'd be?
So I think it's very difficult to get a sense of exactly where that would end up.
Right.
The guidance would be around where the informal or the black market rate is trading, right? So that obviously it's only from anecdotal evidence that we get a sense that that trades around 255 to 265 rupees to the dollar.
And speaking of which, Deshal, Harshidi Silva on Twitter said, look, this is just way too little, too late. Do you agree?
So I think, look, if we look, what we need to ask ourselves, what's the problem we are trying to solve, right? So we're trying to solve a problem of a decline in overall inflows into the forex market, particularly a decline in inward remittances. Mm-hmm. Now, I think the solution to that has probably three parts. The first part is a float of the rupee, which I would say has partially been addressed. So going from 200 to 230 does improve that situation, but doesn't completely address it because it's not a full free float. Mm-hmm. The second part of the solution is to address the shortage or the gap that we have between demand and supply of dollars. Right now, the demand for dollars significantly exceeds the supply, and part of the solution to that is, of course, a tightening of monetary policy or an increase in interest rates. That also has partially been done. That requires a further tightening of monetary policy to address that part to basically reduce the demand for dollars, right?
Right.
The third part of the problem is to address the situation of confidence. Because right now we have the Sri Lankan foreign exchange reserves have declined to a very low level. Therefore, overall, market participants lack the confidence that the rupee can be maintained at these levels. There's an adverse expectation that the rupee will further depreciate. So when you have that expectation, people will naturally want to, delay any inflows coming in because they think, look, I might as well wait until it eventually goes to 270 or something like that.
Right.
So to address that confidence, you need to build in an anchor of stability. So that is where, say, something like an IMF program can really help because it builds in confidence to market participants, and it also is a source of attracting new inflows or fresh inflows of cash into the system, and that can also address that demand supply that I spoke about earlier. So I think to really fully address the problem, you need to do a full float, raise interest rates further, and consolidate that with the IMF program as well.
Now, speaking of which, what does this mean for imports? We know they're going to be more expensive. And how does this affect inflation overall?
Yeah, so it's like this. I think it certainly does increase the official transaction rate for imports as well. But if you look at what's been happening over the last few months, a lot of transactions for imports have actually been taking place off the official rate. So they've been taking place in the grey market or in the black market. So to a great extent, the higher cost of the rupee has already been built in to import prices over the last 3 to 4 months, I would think.
Right.
So there would probably be slight adjustment, but I think to some extent that has already been captured in some of the pricing that we are even seeing today and maybe in the next couple of months.
Right. So wait, what is a grey market?
So I think you generally refer to the informal transactions of foreign exchange as the grey market or the black market. There is a lot of grey area in between, right? So
I mean, it's all a big blur of grey at the moment, Deshal.
50 shades of grey.
It really is.
And because the IMF has recommended, I read that we raise taxes is one thing. Do you think that's, do you agree with that?
Yeah, because if you look at Sri Lanka's overall government revenue as a percentage of GDP, we are amongst the lowest in the world, right? So in 2021, we would have come in at about 9% of GDP. There's only about 10 countries that have lower tax collection rates below that. And a lot of those guys are countries that are, oil exporters that have other sources of revenue for the economy. So really, Sri Lanka does have a problem of very low levels of taxation.
Right.
And that is part of that. Sri Lanka generally has an excess consumption problem. We consume much more than we produce. And that's really one of the reasons why we have continuously high current account deficits in the balance of payments, budget deficits as well. So we need to make this adjustment through measures like increasing taxation, controlling government spending, increasing interest rates from where they are today, so that we control this overall balance between production and supply, production and demand in the economy. So it's a somewhat painful process in making that adjustment, but to ensure longer-term macroeconomic stability is something that really has to be done.
Right. Deshal, I have something for you now, because you mentioned government spending and controlling that. Now, recently there was a huge debacle with some of the bids we got for the Central Expressway, the extension of it. So we had a Chinese company that bid, I think, about 1.7
billion.
170 billion rupees cheaper than the local bidder. But the fact, the whole debacle was about us favoring the local bidder. Now, is there something in terms of when we pay the Chinese company, we're paying in dollars? Does that factor into this?
I don't think that should be a big difference, because anyway, when you have construction projects, a lot of the components are imported, right? With for a number of aspects of it. So regardless of whether it's a local manufacturer or a local tender or a foreign contractor, you're still going to have a large imported component.
Right.
So there's anyway going to be a large dollar outflow when you have construction-related projects. I think here really the issue is in terms of better degree of transparency in procurement, and that's something that could be beneficial overall, right? When you have particularly when you have situations where you have very few people participating in a tender, there is room for this kind of mishap to take place. So it's good to have open, competitive tenders on a broad basis, which is transparent. That really reduces the risk of this kind of mishap going forward.
So it really comes down to who's got the better smile and the better friends, yeah?
Absolutely.
Okay, listen, in an ideal world, Deshal, if you were in charge of Sri Lanka's economy at this moment in time, what might you do?
So look, I think we have a lot of difficult situations that we face on overall macro management, right? So I think the biggest challenge that we have right now is in terms of the significant shortfalls in foreign exchange, that means that we're not able to provide the required forex to play for the critical inputs to the economy. And not even talking about luxury items or whatever. You're looking at basic imports, including fuel, gas, food items, and so on. So that's the first problem that we need to fix. And for that, I think right now, really the problem is that we have large debt-related outflows over the next several months and next several years, and very limited reserves to be able to meet that with. So we are unfortunately in a situation where we have to have a restructuring of our external liabilities, and that needs to be underpinned by an IMF program that will then provide us that additional inflows to support us during that restructuring process. So it's not a fun path or fun road either way over the next couple of years. It's going to be a lot of challenges and a difficult path ahead. But that is, I think, the part of the first step in a solution. Otherwise, we're kind of muddling through and struggling to kind of carry on in this way.
Right.
So really, we need to engage in a debt restructuring, have an IMF program to support us while we do so, and then hopefully build back in the economy over the next 2 years and then get back to a growth path after that.
Right. What, in your opinion, is the likelihood of us going for an IMF program?
I think it would be inevitable within the next 2 to 3 months.
Strong.
Just given the fact that our reserves are at the low level that they are at, we do have large outflows that need to be met. We do need to provide the foreign exchange to support the economy in terms of paying for the critical imports. So something's got to give, and I think an IMF program is really the only way that we can create a sustained source of inflows into the system whilst we stabilize the economy going forward.
Deshal, you've been terrific, as always.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you, guys. My pleasure.
All right,
Thank you
have
so
a good
much.
day. Bye-bye.
Have a great day, bud.
Bye.